Hi everyone, I want to thank you for coming today and connecting into our webinar on great apps start with great tools. We're going to talk about 13.2, which I'm happy to say we shipped 2 days ago. My name is Jason Beres. I'm the Senior VP of Developer Tools at Infragistics. My email is jasonb@infragistics.com. So if you have any questions after the webinar, we'll be online answering questions throughout, but if you want to contact me with any feedback, feel free to email me and let me know what you think about the release. Let me know if you're looking for new features, if there was something you wanted but you didn't see, etc. So this webinar is really about Infragistics Ultimate 13.2, and Ultimate 13.2 is really everything you need to build stunning applications. So after we get through the next hour, we're going to talk about the different platforms that we did work on, the different tools. You'll get the idea that we really did spend time to make sure that what you produce and what you deliver can be the best possible. So here's our agenda. First off, I'm going to talk about some exciting packaging changes in 13.2. If you've logged into my IG and you've downloaded 13.2, you probably noticed something different about the names and what you get in your packages. Then I'll go into our goals for 13.2, and then I'll talk about all the things we did to help you build stunning apps faster with Infragistics Ultimate 13.2. So we'll look at some slides, we'll do some demos, etc. So packaging changes in 13.2. What did we do? So the big thing is that we changed the branding of our two bundles. These bundles are pretty much what we've been selling for many years. We've had different configurations probably over the last 10 years, but really Infragistics Professional and Infragistics Ultimate are the two main bundles we're going to have moving forward. Before 13.2, we called Infragistics Professional Net Advantage for .NET, and we called Infragistics Ultimate Net Advantage Ultimate. Now, the reason we changed the branding was twofold. First, Net Advantage kind of infers like .NET, like Net Advantage for .NET and all that. Well, there's much more than .NET in the packages anymore. So we've moved beyond just the .NET framework. We have iOS controls, we have Android controls, we have UX tools, we have icons, we have SharePoint controls. So there's a lot more going on than just the typical .NET platform. And then the second thing is the branding from the company really sticks with folks better than the branding for the product. So when I'm out talking to customers, they just know Infragistics, and I think it just makes it simpler. It makes our message simpler and a little bit cleaner when we're talking about what we're offering. As part of this update, we've also changed what you actually get in the products. So this is actually pretty exciting for most folks out there because the majority of our customers are on Infragistics Professional. So what is the big change? So if you're a Net Advantage for .NET customer, now you're an Infragistics Professional customer. You get a couple extra things in your package now. Where before you had to be an Ultimate customer to get iOS, Windows UI, Windows Phone, you're going to get that now part of your Infragistics Professional package. So we really look at Infragistics Professional as a focus on the mobile and LOB developer, so you have every control that you need to build a desktop, tablet, or mobile app on any platform. So this is your go-to platform if you're going to build any type of app for any type of device for any type of OS. Infragistics Ultimate adds a few important pieces. First and foremost, we've included SharePoint web parts. Previously, this was sort of just like a trial license where you can mess around with it. Now we're actually shipping 5 CALs with this, so you can actually deploy this and use it for 5 users. So if your company owns 300 Infragistics Ultimates, that means you actually have 1,500 of these SharePoint web part licenses. Now, you don't have to buy the server license from us separately. But I think the biggest key differentiator is around our UX tools. Most enterprises and small businesses today, especially based on a lot of the survey data that we've been asking you about, tools around user experience and prototyping, they do some sort of prototyping. You guys are doing whiteboarding. You're using tools to ensure that before you start writing code, you actually have an idea of what you want to ship. And that's why we've included Indigo Studio in Infragistics Ultimate. So Indigo Studio, if you haven't tried it, you should. I'm going to do a quick demo of it at the beginning of our webinar today. It is our rapid interactive prototyping tool that helps you design an entire experience with interactions, with animations, with gesture support, with everything before you write a single line of code. So the goal of Indigo Studio is to help you design better software and ultimately build better software, because you're not wasting any of those cycles building and then having to go back and change code and then change it again based on what the business says and kind of going back and forth. So a lot of time ends up getting wasted in this cycle. So what we see, especially we launched Indigo last year, we've got huge uptake on it, that folks like it because they can prototype this experience, they can give it to the stakeholders, and then they can actually get approval before they start writing any code. So I want to talk about our goals in 13.2. We had some pretty clear goals when we set out. So there was 3 categories of what we really tried to do across all of the platforms in 13.2. So the first thing was really around helping you build enterprise-class, touch-ready, modern applications. So I put 4 bullets in here. There's more encompassing this feature once you start to get into the product that you actually use. But the important thing to Infragistics is that we're shipping controls that match the type of modern apps you're expected to build today. So they all of your customers and your users expect touch support. They expect gesture support. They expect that when you build an application in Windows Forms or WPF or MVC or ASP.NET and they run it on their tablet, that they can pan up and down, that everything is touch friendly, and it just sort of works. So touch and gesture support across all platforms is very important. The second bullet here is building Office-inspired apps with Windows Forms, WPF, and Silverlight with the new OneNote radial menu and the new Office ribbon and a new rich text editor, which literally is exactly like Microsoft Word in the XAML products. So Windows Forms is still the predominant rich client platform on the market today. Why can't you build really modern-looking apps with it? You should be able to. I'm going to show you some samples today which really demonstrate how you can build a radial menu, live tiles into a rich application to deliver these experiences to your customers. And then, of course, the Office ribbon, probably one of the top 5 most important components that people are using today. Having that touch enabled, having that Office 13 style is really important. The third bullet kind of flowing into what I mentioned in the second bullet around this Windows 8 inspired applications with live tiles. So, people are using tablets. They're using tablets for desktop apps, they're using tablets for the Windows Store apps. You want your applications to match this modern experience. We've shipped a live tile control in Windows Forms to help you do that. And then, of course, across all of the hybrid mobile apps, we want to make sure that they adapt to look like the operating system that they're running on. So when you're, viewing one of the iOS native controls on iOS 7, they all look like iOS 7. When you're doing XAML, we've shipped Metro Light, Metro Dark, and a default theme. On Windows Forms, we've shipped a bunch of new, I think it was about 12 or 16 Windows 8 ISLs, Windows 8 style libraries. And then, of course, on the Ignite UI product, we have all of the default styles for the iOS devices, the Android devices, and Windows Phone. So if you're looking at a mobile app, it's going to look just like that. You would expect it on a phone. So you take these 4 pieces, and I think that it really does help you build these enterprise-class, touch-ready, modern applications. Some of this stuff was in 13.1, and you'll see more of it, as we move forward in 2014. But at the end of the day, we want you to feel comfortable that when you install Infragistics Ultimate 13.2, you can build these types of applications. The second item is we want to help you create rapid interactive prototypes with code assets. So Indigo Studio has been in the market now for a little under a year, and we've gotten tons of feedback. And when I talk to developers about Indigo Studio, the first question they ask me is, well, does it generate code? Well, I'm happy to say that with 13.2, we've started down that path. So what you can do with Indigo Studio now is you can design an experience And when you're running it in the browser, you can actually generate code assets from whatever's running in the browser. So I think there's more to this story in 2014. We wanted to ship this in 13.2, and it's really important that you give us your feedback on how you expect this to work and how you can get the most value out of Indigo Studio generating code assets. And finally, number 3, we want to help you build stunning applications without a design team. So for years, Infragistics has led with our app stylist tools for Windows Forms and ASP.NET, but we have way more platforms now. We have more things to worry about. So in 13.2, we've reset the entire design of our XAML and HTML data visualization controls, and we're shipping a brand new modern theme for all of our HTML controls. So when you new up a XAM data chart or an IG data chart in HTML, it's going to have a better default look and feel. You're not going to have to change any of the settings. You're not going to have to change any of the margins. And if you want to go even further and add things like drop shadows and extra tick marks and an axis title, you can do that as well. But our goal is when you put that control onto a form or onto a page, you don't actually have to do anything to it. It looks beautiful right off the bat. I mentioned this earlier, but in Windows Forms, we're shipping Office 13 and Windows 8 style libraries. And in XAML, we've shipped the dark and light modern themes for all controls, including intrinsic controls from Microsoft. So this has been one of those questions for the last few years. It's like you have some themes, but you're not doing it for the Microsoft controls. Well, we went out and we did this for the light and dark modern themes. So if you have an application that has half Infragistics controls and half intrinsic controls from the toolbox, you'll be able to apply our themes and it'll make your application look beautiful. So let's get started. So the rest of this presentation today is really going to be around talking about the new features, highlighting the controls, and going through some examples of each one. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Indigo Studio. So Indigo Studio, like I mentioned, if you haven't tried Indigo Studio, you should. It's a pretty cool tool. It really does help you get prototypes done very quickly. It's unlike anything on the market. It's not building a static prototype. It's building an interactive prototype. So you actually have a timeline where you can animate and make sure that if something is clicked on a form and another action is supposed to occur, that's all visual to the user and they actually see it happen. There's full gesture support. So if you're building a mobile app, for example, an iOS app or an Android app, and you expect to scroll and pan and all that, that works too, just like you'd expect when you're running the prototype. So we've done a lot of work to make sure that when you are building a prototype with Indigo Studio and you're showing it to the stakeholders, they're actually seeing what they're going to get. But with 13.2, like I mentioned, we're going a step further. We're actually going to generate some code assets. So what I'm going to do is quickly bring up Indigo Studio and show you how this works. So we'll go ahead and start up Indigo Studio. If you haven't downloaded it, it's like any other product. You get a trial, and you can go ahead and play with it. So if you're an Infragistics professional customer, you're not sure if you want to upgrade to Ultimate, go ahead, try the free trial out, and I'm pretty sure that you'll probably decide you want to check it out. So let's go ahead and create a quick prototype. One of the things you can do to get started is we do ship a bunch of different samples, which are very cool and very useful. So FindFlix, Rove, Recipe Later, and My Money are all different types of samples. So for example, I'm just going to run the My Money project. And what you're going to see is how this would actually look inside of the Chrome of an iOS application. So I'll hit continue, and you can see I have all of the interactions. Now I have highlighting on, so it's actually showing me with the yellow border where I can actually click and what I can actually do with this. So as I click around on the screen, I'll see the interactions, I'll see things move on the screen, and this is actually how it should behave when the user actually runs it. But anyway, I'm going to close this out. I really don't want to mess with that right now. What I'm actually going to do is go to the menu, and I'm going to do New, And I'm not going to create a whole new storyboard. I'm just going to do a new screen. Now, when you create a new screen, I'm going to change this from iPhone 5. I'm going to change this over to just generic. And we're going to change this to 800 by 600, and we'll close that out. So what I'm going to do is, like I would just create any other prototype, just drag some controls from the toolbox onto the form. So I'll grab a couple text boxes, and you can see when I do this, I get the nice snap lines, I get a nice property editor, interactions, etc. I'm going to scroll down a bit. So I add a couple text boxes. Let me add a drop-down box, combo box, like so. And I'll also add a table, put a table right underneath. And then finally, if I scroll down a bit, you'll see we have some richer controls like the map, gauge, chart. I'm just going to go ahead and grab a chart, and I'll resize it a bit. Now, this isn't the ultimate prototype, but what I'm just trying to do is show that when you do put some items on a design surface, you can start to build out an experience. Now, what I want to do is actually run this and then generate code from this. So I have like a grid, some text boxes, a drop down. So let's go ahead and run the screen, and we'll see that I have the running prototype here. It really doesn't do anything because I didn't tell it to do anything, but you get the idea. Here's a drop down, here's a text box, etc. You'll notice on my flyout, when I'm running the prototype, I have this code button. So I can toggle this to bring up the code export dialog. So what this actually does is it shows me the well-formed HTML and JavaScript using the Ignite UI widgets that I would need to build out this page. So I'm going to go ahead and select all. I'm going to Control-C to copy this. I'm going to go ahead and open up Notepad++. I'm going to paste this in, just kind of go through this process. I'm going to save this as on my desktop, and we'll call it page.html. Now, if I scroll up to the top, you'll notice the first two things are CDN references. So we've got a CDN reference to the Infragistics CSS files, then we've got some inline CSS, we've got a reference to Modernizer, and then if I scroll down a little bit more, again, more references to the Infragistics CDNs. So the whole point is you don't really need to do anything to start building out an Ignite UI project with Indigo Studio. We're supplying you with the text, all the CDNs, all the code, so you can start building out pages. Now, as I scroll down, you'll notice here's your typical JavaScript function that you would see in any Ignite UI project. So we have an IG text editor, we have the IG combo, we've got the IG grid, we've got columns defined in the grid, and of course we could have defined more on this grid, and then we have an inline data source of columns and data, and then a little bit further we've got the chart data source, and then of course the IG chart. So what we're doing is, because we're using sort of mocked up data in Indigo Studio, we're just exporting that mocked up data out to the controls. And that's all you get. So just like that, I design a page, I go ahead and export that from my running prototype in Indigo Studio, and now if I run this guy, let's run him in IE, I'll allow block content, you can see that I've got my IG grid, I've got the chart, I've got my drop-down combo, I've got my text boxes. Of course, very basic, not super exciting, but the point is this is real code that I can start using from my layout to start building out pages in my application, and that's the goal. Now, there's a lot more we could do with this. There's a bunch of frameworks at play. There's data that we could link into Indigo Studio, but we want you to tell us what you'd like to see next. So please go to User Voice, either add suggestions to ideas.infragistics.com to the Ignite UI or the Indigo Studio page around this code generation feature. But I think you're going to like this. I would really like to hear your feedback, and I look forward to seeing how this feature actually grows over the next 12 months with how you expect to build out these pages with Indigo Studio. So let's go back to the slides. So next up, let's talk about WPF and Silverlight. Of course, Silverlight's probably not something that you're doing a ton of anymore. We see that the Silverlight market is sort of decreasing. It never really had a huge market share worldwide, but if you needed a really rich line of business application that needs to get deployed pretty quickly and it had a familiar programming model to WPF or even Windows Forms, Silverlight was a great tool. Well, we're still investing in Silverlight. We're actually adding new features to Silverlight. We have a shared XAML strategy. So when we think about XAML, we think about Windows UI, Windows Phone, WPF, and Silverlight. So it's not just, we're only going to do something for Windows Phone and not WPF. We kind of look at it a little more global. That's not to say that we don't have features that are WPF only or Windows Phone only, etc., but we try to think of it as a shared XAML strategy altogether. We did a ton of work in WPF and Silverlight across all the XAML controls for 13.2. This slide highlights a few of them. Now, in each one of the slides, you're going to notice at the bottom, I've got an Infragistics.com products what's new link. I highly suggest everyone go to Infragistics.com, and there's a big button on the home page that says what's new, and you read about what's new because there's a ton of detail. These are just the highlights that I'm kind of showing you today, some of the things that I really want you to know about, but there is so much stuff that we added in 13.2 across every product, it would be too much to include in a single webinar. But specifically for Silverlight and WPF, we did a lot of work with new data visualization controls. So we have a new linear gauge, a new bullet graph, a new radial gauge, and as I mentioned, one of our core strategies for 13.2 is really having that beautiful default look and feel. So we've updated all of the defaults. When you put a control, a XAML control on the form, it's going to look better. The chart has animations when it opens up now. The label alignment is correct. There's good tick marks. So when you put a chart on a form, it's going to look really nice. We've also added a ton new features to these controls as well. So when you read all of the what's new and start digging around in the sample browser, you'll see all of these highlighted. We've shipped two new major controls. The first one being the radial menu. So the radial menu actually ships across the board. Interestingly enough, we have a radial menu for our jQuery product as well. We didn't quite have it ready in time to put to market with 13.2 this week, but in the next few weeks, you'll see our jQuery radial menu. So that means every platform has a touch-friendly radial menu so you can build great touch experiences. But I think what's even more interesting and more exciting is our XAML rich text editor. We set out to build a rich text editor. It was one of our top customer asks. You guys said we need a rich text editor. We went like 10 steps further. We actually basically built you a mini Word. So if you want to do any type of data manipulation inside of what you would expect to do inside of Word, you can do with the XAML rich text editor. I'm going to go through some samples in a second around these features. And then, of course, going back to the styles, I mentioned the dark, the light, the metro themes, the new defaults across all the controls. So, of course, not only did we ship a bunch of new features, they all look good as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the XAML rich text editor. I'm going to open up the WPF sample browser. So the WPF sample browser, as you know, whenever we add a new feature, we have the little new icon. So you'll see here we've got a new control in the bullet graph, new linear gauge, new radial gauge. There's the XAML rich text editor. If I scroll down, you'll see we've updated a bunch of stuff on the XAML data chart. So when you drill into these samples, you can kind of see what we've done, and you can see some of the transition animations that we've added in the defaults and some of the other things. So we've kind of made the charts actually look pretty nice. Axis titles, tick mark settings. We have value markers that we've updated. So overall, a much more polished look and even drop shadows. So we've added drop shadows across the board for every product for charting. But anyway, I'll let you guys play around with all the charts. What I want to focus on for our webinar today is the XAML rich text editor. So I'm just going to go through a few samples to give you an idea of what you can do with the XAML rich text editor. So this is interesting. Defining custom lists. In Word, when you're adding items and you hit the Enter key and it tries to determine what the prefix was in the previous item, We do the same thing in the XAMRich text editor. You can actually create custom lists very easily by just typing, and it will fill those out for you automatically. So it's very nice, and no matter what I type and hit enter, I actually get that number 9 take, it'll be number 10 take, etc. as I go in. If I scroll down, you can have features like drop caps for fonts. You can have hierarchical lists that you define. And you can see as I tab in and hit tab out, I get the right hierarchy set up, hierarchy set by color, etc. You can have hyperlinks. You can define images. All of these images could be inline images. You can see as I'm zooming and rotating the image in place, you'll notice that the text is actually moving with the image. So it's actually pretty slick. You can define lists. You can define tables. We have a table editor. All sorts of text and manipulation, just like you'd expect in Word. We have document adapters. So the interesting thing here is we have different serializers. So we have rich text, text. You can create your own serializer. So let's say, for example, you have the need to input some document language, some document definition, and then output RTF. You can do that with this control. So we've made it completely extensible to make that happen. But one of the interesting things that I want to show you is just the overall performance that we have of the control. We did a lot of work to make sure you could load up megabyte-sized files, hundreds of thousands of rows of information, of images, of tables in a document. And when you load it, it loads efficiently. So let me just open up, this is a fine one here. I'll Control A this, and I'm actually going to delete everything that's in this rich text editor. And I have a Word document here that we wrote a bunch of years ago when we were designing our thematic map. So the thematic map ended up being the IG map that we ship across all of these controls. And we started all this, heck, I don't remember, maybe 2007, something like that. I'm just going to hit Control A. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to paste this right into my Word document. So you can see that it pasted in, it preserved the formatting. So remember, this is Word, so it preserved the Word formatting. Now as I scroll down, what you'll notice is that all of the images are pasted in exactly where they were in my Word document. All the formatting is exactly consistent with what I had in my Word document. So what we've done is with the Word serializer is if you have a Word document and you want to use the XAMRich text editor, you're going to get a one-for-one paste of that Word document into the sample. The other thing you'll notice here is look at how fast my selection ranges. Look at how fast it's happening on the bottom. As I select text, it's actually returning the text. It's giving me the start, end, and it's doing this for, as fast as I can work with the document. We've done that with things like find. We did a test the other day where we found, 3,000 items in a document and highlighted them, and it was literally milliseconds. So we're really excited about this control. It was one of the top feature asks we've had in the last few years. We want to get your feedback. There's still a pretty healthy roadmap for this moving forward, but we're going to wait for you to tell us what you want. So make sure you use user voice. Let us know what you'd like to see in the XAMRich text editor, what features you like, what you don't like, and of course, we'll respond to that. But actually, before I leave, let me go down one here to theming. I just want to show the different themes. So we've got the default theme. We've got the Office 2010 blue theme. I've got the Metro theme, which you'll notice made the scroll bars a little bit thicker, so I can actually use those in a more touch-friendly manner. And another cool thing about this is I can split my windows, so I can have multiple splits of my document, so I can actually work in one document in one area and another document in another area, and I don't have to worry about having two different versions of this open. It's working on the same document. So anyway, that's the XAMRich text editor. Like I said, excited to get it to market, and it's one of the biggest features that we've put out in the XAML product for 13.2. So let me go back to the slides, and let's keep moving along to Windows Forms. So as I mentioned in the beginning, Windows Forms really is still the predominant rich client platform in the world. I mean, you go to any enterprise, any small business, there's Windows Forms applications that are built, being built, and going to be built. We want to make sure that your Windows Forms experience can be modern and exciting. So we've built the radial menu. We've got the live tile view. We've got the Office 13 ribbon style. You know, in 13.1, we added the Ultra Touch Provider. So the Ultra Touch Provider literally lets you drag this component onto any form, and we add 9mm touch points around everything that you'd have to interact with. So it's a touch-friendly UI, and you don't have to add any new code or change any of your existing code. And then, as I mentioned, we shipped new modern styles. So we shipped a bunch of new Windows 8 style libraries for App Stylist, so you can actually have something that looks more in line with the Windows Store application. So let me go ahead and show you a couple things. First of all, I have Visual Studio open. So let me jump over to Visual Studio, and I'm going to open up the Intune sample. Now, the Intune sample is pretty slick. I'm just going to go ahead and hit Run, and you'll see what this looks like, and we'll kind of go through some of the features. This is a live tile sample. This ships. It's online. You get all the source code. You can do all this yourself, so don't worry. This is not secret at all. Everything I'm showing you here, you can go download with the product today. So you'll notice that some of the tiles are moving. They may not come across as slick on the WebEx, but we have a live tile experience here. If I right-click, you'll notice I get an app bar on the bottom. If I click the Customize button, you can see that some of these areas have opened up, so I can actually edit my category. So this will be, new pop. If I right-click on a tile, you'll notice that I get the resize option. So I can actually make this tile wide. So now that tile is actually wide. It's not large. If this tile up here, let me right-click and I want to turn the live tile off. So now that live tile is turned off. I can also drag and rearrange tiles. So maybe I want that tile over there. And just as well, what I would like to do is take country and move it. Well, new pop's not going to let me put it over there. Let me drag new pop over here so I can actually rearrange my categories, just like I would with the start menu in Windows. That's exactly how it works. So what you have here is this complete tile experience with tiles that you can respond to. So for example, if I click this live tile, I have a grid just popped up. So what I created is a user control, and I just pop up this user control, and it's going to display some data. Let me hit the back button. If I click this live tile, I have a chart. And basically what we did for this sample is we're just demonstrating the same thing over and over again. So it's the same chart and the same grid, but when you guys build out your applications, you can basically do whatever you want. The sky's the limit. You can open up a browser window. You can open up a whole new window. This control is not a container. It's just basically a control. So you're just responding to click events on the control, and you can do whatever you want. But the nice thing about this, as I scroll to the right and left, you sort of have that parallax effect where the background image does not change, but the foreground does. And yes, keep in mind, this is Windows Forms. This isn't WPF. This isn't Windows UI. This is a live tile control in Windows Forms. The performance is amazing, and what you can do with it's really cool. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to go back to the design time, right-click, and go into the Live Tile Designer. Now, the reason I want to go into the Live Tile Designer is because for this sample, we created all the live tiles in Code Behind. So we instantiated them and loaded them up in Code Behind. But we also spent a lot of time on the design time experience. So, for example, if I just wanted to start building out a live tile experience, and I want to add, let's say, a big tile here, and what others do we have? Medium-sized tile over there, and I want to right-click on this guy and duplicate him, or maybe change him to medium. You can see that we did all the work and all the property editing for you in place to build out this live tile UI. You don't have to imagine this in your head and instantiate things in code. You can actually go ahead, design the live tile experience with a simple drag and drop WYSIWYG UI, and then that becomes your live tile view that you're going to put on your page. And all of these guys have different properties. You can see we have all the different sizes that you would need. We literally matched everything that you get in Windows 8.1. So in the Windows 8.1 Start menu, there's a bunch of features, and we've matched those features in this live tile control. So we really think that live tile control can actually elevate the types of apps that you're building for your customers that are not only touch-friendly, but really kind of give that modern experience. Now, the second app I want to show is using the radial menu. So let me go ahead. I'm going to right-click on this guy here, Intune. I'm going to open up In Gear, which is another application that we actually built. So Gear, and for In Gear, what I'm going to do is just click Run. Well, first off, I'll show you here on the bottom. We have the Ultra Touch Provider component. We've got the Ultra Radial menu component. And the Ultra Radial menu component is really what we're highlighting with this example. Now, a lot of times when you see the radial menu, it ends up being the context of OneNote, where it's a font chooser and color chooser, etc. What we did is we changed it to actually act as a filter dialog for the data in this grid. So based on what I click on my radial menu, you'll see that my grid is actually filtering out. Now I can drill in to my wedge, and I can get into subcategories. So think of this radial menu as a context menu of some sort that has a big hierarchy, and that hierarchy allows you to drill in and see what's behind that next item. So for example, when you're looking at a font, you click the font type, and then you get all the font styles underneath, and you get all the colors. So you can actually categorize this however you want and create any type of experience with the radial menu. It's actually pretty slick. And this app, again, it's a 100% touch-friendly app. It's using the radial menu for filtering and navigation, but everything works really nicely. We ship all the source code with this, so you'll be able to see how we built it, how we made it look so nice, and actually how we made it so responsive and fast. So hopefully you enjoy the In Gear sample application that we shipped and the Intune sample app that we shipped. So let's head back to our slides and keep rolling here. We've got a bunch more stuff to cover, and I'm always running out of time. So Ignite UI, we did a ton of stuff at Ignite UI. This is starting to be one of those products where we get tons of feature requests. There's a ton of people using it. There's a ton of people doing ASP.NET MVC. There's a lot of people doing just pure client-side jQuery. So we're keeping up with the market with this product. So just to highlight some things, new default UI for all controls. We have a bunch of new controls, the radial gauge, donut chart, layout manager, tile manager. We shipped a QR barcode, bullet graph. We shipped our HD scatter map. So the HD scatter map lets you plot millions of data points on the map, literally in milliseconds. We had that in XAML. Well, now we have it in jQuery as well. And then you'll see in my new features bullet, we have jQuery 2.0 compatibility, History.js support across all controls, fast click support. So fast click really means that in a lot of these tablet browsers, when you click on something, there is a built-in delay in the browser because it's trying to determine if it is a single click or double click. Well, we get around that with our fast click support. We're shipping TypeScript definitions for all of the controls. We have MVC5 support. We have a new script combiner. So this is another huge request from you guys. You said, hey, I don't want to download the entire LOB or DV.js file. I just want to use the grid with these three features. Well, now with the script combiner, you can actually do that. We ship less files for CSS, so you can take our CSS and actually customize it even easier with your own styles. We've updated the control configurator so you can design pages even faster now. And then everything that we're shipping is responsive web design enabled. So everything from the grid features to the layout managers to the charts, you name it. If you're building an app and it needs to run on a tablet and a phone, and you're just using the straight up controls, you're going to have that ability to really deliver a great responsive web design with your product. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, make sure you go to the What's New product page or the What's New page, because there's so much stuff in Ignite UI, you just can't cover it in all the slides. And then one of the biggest things where you'll actually get to see a lot of this is the new IgniteUI.com. So we've shipped a brand new sample browser. It has a whole new look and feel, improved navigation, easy to find samples. Every sample, or nearly every sample, you can open in JS Fiddle. If you're not familiar with JS Fiddle, it actually lets you start messing around with the script right online and then hitting run and seeing the results right there. So it's sort of like an online mini IDE of sorts. And then this entire sample experience and the entire IgniteUI.com is a responsive web design. So you can actually run all of our samples on your phone. And why is this cool? Well, because we have a ton of mobile samples. So on the mobile samples, you actually are looking at it, you click it, and it's running exactly how it would look as if you built that application. So we've done a lot of work to make sure that the experience you get at IgniteUI.com and the sample browser that we ship with the product is what you would get if you were running this as the application that you built. So let's go ahead and take a look at IgniteUI.com. I'm going to open up Chrome, make this a little bit bigger, and let's go to IgniteUI.com. You can see we've got the beautiful new UI. One of the big efforts we did, besides the new defaults and all these new features, was around showcase samples. So on this home page, what you're going to notice, on the left-hand side, of course, you have all the controls, but on the right-hand side, you have our application samples. So the finance is a brand new sample. Sales dashboard, brand new sample. Patient management and vitals, existing sample, updated. So we've done a lot of work to update it. But just to show you how cool this is, let's just go ahead and launch this sales dashboard app. So this is meant to be running on your tablet. So my screen's actually pretty big. It's 1366 by 768, I believe. But imagine this running on a slightly smaller tablet. So on the left-hand side, you've got sort of this navigator where I can click around, and on the right-hand side, I've got a map which is showing me some details. I can click into different regions. I can go into monthly or yearly different metrics. So if I select a 12-month metric, I get an updated UI. I'm going to go into the regions. I'm going to select the Southwest region. You can see everything's changing. So you can download this entire application with all the source code and run it on your device. You can actually just run it on your device right now, but we're making everything available to you. So what's neat here is, let me click on Bailey. So now I have a nice animated shift. I get a new screen. I can look at the dealerships or the different car models. Let me look at the Porsche or the Posh. It scrolls over or slides in from the right, and here I can actually sort the cars, page through the cars, and actually look at different data. Let me close this guy out. This slides back and this slides back. So this is a responsive web design enabled app. It's something we ship all the source code for, and it's the type of stuff you're going to see more and more from Infragistics over the next 6 months and 12 months across all of the products. So in Gear and Intune, beautiful, stunning applications. And now with Ignite UI, you've got the sales tracking, you've got finance, you've got the patient management, you've got personal finance dashboard as well. So a lot of work going into giving you applications where you can just pick it up and kind of take it to the next level. So first thing I want to do is click the Download Now button. What I want to show you here is what you get on the Download Now page. This is all new. So the first thing, first and foremost, in your face is our CDN. We want to make sure that when you're starting to build applications with Ignite UI and even our ASP.NET products, you can just use our CDN. You don't have to worry about downloading the product. You don't have to worry about figuring out how to configure it. Many of you are new to building out web experiences. You're used to doing rich client, now you've moved to the web. So any little heads up and any little edge we can give you, we're going to try to give you. So in this case, I can click Select All. I can copy this in, paste it into my page, and now I have the Infragistics libraries in my page. So let's go ahead and scroll down a bit. Now this is where it gets pretty slick. So I want to have a custom build of the Infragistics controls so that I can just have the most minimum amount of jQuery possible. So let's go ahead, and I want to select, I don't know, Sparkline. Sparkline selected the DB Simple Core and my simple data chart. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to grab the combo box, and I want to grab the grid. And on the grid, I don't need everything. I want cell merging, tooltips, and then if I scroll down, you'll see it kind of grabbed a bunch of stuff. Let's grab the report viewer too. Why not? So I've selected what I want. I've selected my custom build. Now I click download custom build. So what we do is on the server, we go ahead and we combine all those script files, and then we deliver down to you all that you need to run those controls on your page. Now, when you're just starting out, you might think, well, I don't really know what to put in my page. And that's fine. You're not going to know. So you're just going to use the CDN, and you're just going to have a slightly larger file size. That's all that this means. Then once you start getting into optimizing and performance tuning your product and your pages, because you're going to end up going page by page and making sure it's the most optimal for the device that you're targeting, you're going to want to use something like this script combiner, so you have your own custom builds potentially for every page, or you build a custom build and use it across a series of pages. But at the end of the day, this will give you the most optimized experience for the product. So use the custom builder, use our CDN. If you're signed in, you'll automatically get the full version. If you're not signed in, you get the trial version. So, like I mentioned earlier, this is where you can get all of the samples. This is where you can link into the control configurator. We have a new Getting Started page. What the Getting Started page does is it gives you boilerplate jQuery and HTML, so you can copy it and easily get started if you're new to the product, or if you're just kind of like want to get a boilerplate and get going with the page. So you can very easily just copy stuff, paste it into your pages, and run it without having to go and look up in the help file what you need. So for example, if I grab all this and I paste it into like Notepad++ and save it as HTML, this is the output that I'm going to get. It's going to look exactly like that. You can notice that this is with our new default look and feel. Things look pretty beautiful. I have nice colors. Things are a little flatter, a little more optimized for your experiences today. So let's go back to the jQuery controls. Now you'll notice when I expanded controls, I scroll down, you can see we have all of the controls listed, and this is where you get all the samples for all of the controls. And like I mentioned, this is responsive, so if you're looking at this on your tablet or your phone, you're going to have the same great experience. So if I go something, for example, in the grid, I want to look at the feature chooser. I think one of the neatest features we shipped in 13.2 for folks that are delivering modern touch experiences is our touch-friendly feature chooser. So look at this. No longer do you have tiny little icons or glyphs in the headers that when you're running this on your tablet, your Android, your Windows tablet, or your iOS tablet, where you're having a hard time clicking things, you don't really know what's going on. So here I can actually have dialogues that pop up. I can customize how sorts occur. I can go back. I can say move this column to the left. All of this in a touch-friendly manner. And the whole point is that more and more when you build an application, you can't expect that it's only used on a desktop. It can be used on a tablet, a phone, whatever. So this feature is actually pretty cool. One of my new favorite features. History.js integration essentially means as I work inside of the control, so I might sort, I might change a filter, I might go to a different page. What's actually happening is if you don't have History.js and I click back in the browser, it's going to go back to the previous state or the previous view of the page. So it'll just kind of refresh the entire page. But with History.js, we're actually tracking the state of the interactions within the control. So when you do back and forth with the browser, you get this experience where you're not actually refreshing the entire page. The user is actually refreshing what happened when they were interacting with the controls. So History.js integration ends up being something that's pretty important. I'm going to scroll down. There's only a couple more things I'm going to show you for Ignite UI. You guys will be able to go and mess around with these samples yourself. But this is the vertical rendering for responsive UI. So responsive web design, as you know in 13.1, we shipped the ability to use media queries to say what columns should show and hide based on the device size. Well, in 13.2, we actually have something called vertical rendering. So you can say that on a certain device size or every device, you just want to vertically render the content of a grid. So that means the columns are on the left and the data is on the right. And you can see when I page, I'm actually just paging through all of my records. So here I've got 5 records. I can show more per page, but the idea is I'm paging through this in a different way than I would if I was actually just using a regular responsive layout. So let's go back, and next up I want to very quickly show 2 other controls. I want to show the data chart just so you can see some of the new features that we did with the data chart. So in this case, we've done some work on series highlighting, and hopefully you noticed that when I brought up the chart, I don't know how it comes across on the WebEx, but there was a nice animation. Now as I hover over each chart series, you can kind of see that I've got a highlighted category layer, so I can actually customize that, make it look however I want. Let's go to the crosshair layer. So we've added this capability so you can see we have different types of crosshairs on the charts. So as I move around the chart, you can see how the crosshairs move, and this can all be customized. You can have different thickness on the crosshairs. You can have a different brush on the crosshairs. But at the end of the day, as a user is interacting with your charts, you want them to be able to pinpoint the data that they're trying to look at. Crosshairs are a great way to do that. Series highlighting in financial charts. We also added a new control called the zoom bar. We've had zoom bar for a while across all of the other products, but in 13.2 we actually added the zoom bar to the financial charting. So we can go ahead and change this transition duration to make it a little bit faster, or we can actually make it a little bit slower. So we can just change how this animation occurs, and you can see that this is the default animation that would show up, and you can see that you've got almost a 3D look to these charts just because of the way we added border edges and how we render it. Now another nice aspect of this is if I scroll down, remember earlier I mentioned we have all of the code available to you. So this is all the code for this sample, and if I want to run this in JS Fiddle, I can simply say show in JS Fiddle, and now I have everything that I need to actually play around with this chart type in JS Fiddle. So, for example, if I want to change the title, I can just say custom title. This is the nice thing about JS Fiddle, is that you can just customize stuff, you can go ahead and run it, and then it's going to reflect over here in my running sample. So now it says financial chart, but you get the exact same thing that you got in our website when you're running it. And it splits out the CSS, the scripts, and the actual JavaScript. So we did a lot of work to make sure that all of these samples end up having their JS Fiddle counterpart online. But anyway, we don't have enough time to go through everything here today. I encourage you, if you are using Ignite UI and you want to go check out a lot of this new stuff, we did a ton of work in Ignite UI. There's so many new features that it would take a pretty long time to go over all of them. So you guys have to explore yourself and really see how we can help you build out these stunning apps faster. One of the things I would do right off the bat, if I was new to Ignite UI or just new to the web in general, I would go to igniteui.com, I would go to application samples, and I would download one of these guys, and I would start playing with it and kind of understanding what we did to make these samples awesome. So here's a sample using the tile manager. We have a bunch of different charts sort of mimicking something that you would get in an ER room, emergency room. But we do a lot of work to make sure that these are responsive, they're showing different charts, they're very flexible, and you kind of understand the control. So even here when I resize, you can see when I resize the browser, I get my buttons at the top and I can move things around. So go check out igniteui.com and start to explore what we've done with that product today. So lastly, well actually not lastly, we've got 2 other products to cover. I don't have demos for these products just because I don't have, it's not easy to hook up your iPad to the screen sharing, and just as equally it's not as easy to screen share on Windows UI. So Nucleus we've done a ton of work on. This is a really important product. This drives our mobile business application, Share Plus and Report Plus. But this also allows any developer who wants to build for Xamarin with bindings and using C# and building just straight up native Objective-C to build out an iOS 7 experience that's super touch friendly, very modern, and this really is the richest native iOS toolset on the product. So in 13.2, we added new controls, data visualization controls, linear gauge, bullet graph, sparkline, area, column, win loss, tree maps, funnel charts, a new overlay container. This is cool because it allows you to overlay on any UI and then set up clickable areas. We've got a brand new calendar control which does month, day, year, which, by the way, looks better than what ships with iOS 7, and you can bind it very easily with your iOS 7 calendar. So it actually is pretty sweet. And we've got a new progress display. In the grid, we've added full editing support, so you can do data entry within the grid now, and then swipe support, like you've been used to using in different UI patterns on mobile devices for a couple of years now. We've added that swipe support to the grid. And then in the chart, we've added custom markers, we've added zoom bars, so you can actually have a better experience for zooming in and out of data when you're using the Nucleus chart. So again, if you're doing any type of iOS development, you want to go native with either Xamarin or just straight up Objective-C Xcode, go ahead and check out Nucleus. You can go to the App Store and just download the Nucleus sample browser today and start interacting with these samples yourselves. And then finally, Windows UI. You'll notice by some of the screenshots, we did the same work on Windows UI that we did in the Ignite UI grid. So you've got this amazing full modern touch UI. We even went one step further with the Windows UI XAML grid. You actually can use your finger and range select in the grid just like you do in Excel. So you can actually select a bunch of cells, copy those cells out, paste them elsewhere, etc. So Windows UI, we're still investing in the XAML side. We've got the persistence framework as a new control. We've got a new Excel framework. We've got the new radial menu. And then, of course, continuing to add improvements to the grid. I think that the grid's always been that kind of interesting story for Windows UI. You know, do you really need a big data grid in this Windows UI, Windows Store experience? Well, I think you do. And I think the only problem's been there hasn't been the right grid on the market to actually do it. Well, our Windows UI grid is the right grid to help you build out great experiences for the Windows Store. So let's wrap this up. We got about 3 minutes left. So I just want to highlight what we accomplished, and hopefully you'll see this too as you dig into the samples, as you dig into the What's New pages online. If you go to Infragistics.com, start looking at some of our awesome new YouTube videos that we shipped. We've got a ton of new YouTube videos, a ton of new application samples, a ton of new stuff on the web that's going to help you build these enterprise-class, touch-ready, modern applications faster. We want to help you build rapid interactive prototypes with code assets with Indigo Studio and Ignite UI. And we want to help you build stunning apps without a design team. So take a look at our themes. If you don't like them, let us know. If you want more themes, let us know. Use user voice to be the constant feedback mechanism with Infragistics, because we do listen to that, and that's how we're driving the product. So the next step for you, go to Infragistics.com and click the download trial button. Even if you're a subscriber, what we've done is we've modified how this works. You can actually just sign in during the install process, and we'll validate that you have a license, and then you can just install the product. It's easier than ever to actually get this on your machine today. And even with Ignite UI, you saw, just go copy some of those CDN links and make that happen. And with that respect, get all the details at the What's New pages. I can't stress this enough. There's so many details. We just couldn't cover them all in this 1 hour today. We'll be online for a little while after, and you can see we've been answering some questions throughout the webinar. But go check out the What's New pages to really see what's going on with the product, and then give us feedback. Looks like I have an extra HTTP in here, but go to ideas.infragistics.com, pick the product that you use and you're passionate about the most, and you want Infragistics to improve, add new features to, and go tell us what you'd like to see. And then, of course, always feel free to email me at jasonb@infragistics.com. Send me your good, you're bad, you're ugly. I don't care. I want to hear it. I want to help you be more successful. I want to make our products better. If you have stuff that you really thought you were going to see, but you didn't see, or you're not sure about, please email me. So with that, we're right about at the hour time. We're going to stay online and answer some of these questions that we're seeing pop up. But I want to thank everyone for coming today. I really appreciate the time you spent with us, and we hope you enjoy 13.2 as much as we enjoyed building it. So thanks for listening.